Robert. Good morning, everyone. Well, today actually is going to be my first technical speech, which is kind of funny because, like Robert said, I've been here a while and I've given a lot of non-technical speeches, but I do not know why I have not done a technical speech yet. So let me see, how many technical people do we have in the group today? Okay. Half a hand. Half a hand, I got you. Okay, that counts. All right, so let me ask you a question. How many of you from those that technical have used NoSQL databases? Or know anything about NoSQL? Okay. All right.
James spoke about them 1 year ago.
Did it really? Yeah. Probably before I was here. But regardless, like I said, I am a technical guy myself, and the funny thing is I never used NoSQL databases, but I heard people talking about it, so I became like really interested in them, and I decided to explore them. I'm more a relational database guy myself. I use them as long as I've been in the IT industry. I learned them in school, you know, and I think they're great. You can do anything you want with the relational databases. But when it comes to NoSQL, when I heard about NoSQL databases, I'm like, I was in a state of shock. I'm like, who needs NoSQL databases? Well, to understand why you need NoSQL databases, you actually have to look at the history of the relational databases. So let's do that. So which buttons? Okay.
Upper gray one.
The upper gray one?
No, next.
This one?
Up.
Okay.
No, not that one.
Okay, which one? See, maybe I shouldn't qualify this technical. Right, here we go. I swear I pressed this button. Maybe I'm just not a strong guy. All right. Here's not a strong technical guy. That's right. All right. So if we look at the history of the relational databases, we'll see that they've been defined. The first concept, the original concept, was defined. I'm sorry, you can probably not. Can you see it? Okay. All right. Good. So the first concept was defined in 1970. Can you guys actually see that, or can we dim the lights? Because I think the idea is not to go through the entire presentation, but to be able to see. Can you see now? Better, right? A little better.
So never put black font over black background.
Yes, especially on this screen. It would not be good. All right. So relational database was defined in 1970 by Edward Cudd, and he basically defined them for non-technical people as a two-dimensional tables, you know, with the columns and the rows, obviously, and they had to have a pretty fine schema. The first commercially available product was in the market by 1979, and it was Oracle. And then SQL became an American standard in '86 and international standard in '87. So we can see that SQL is a really mature, really old technology, right? So a lot of us have not been, you know, working in the IT industry back then, right? Well, has SQL changed much? Well, not really. If we look at the same SQL statements that we had like 40 years ago, we still have the same SQL statements. I mean, they're great. They do everything that we need to, but they haven't changed. How about the world around us? Has the technology around us changed? Well, you bet. If we look at the computers back in the 70s, right, they look more like a black and white television sets with the typewriters, like big, huge typewriters attached to them, right? Well, the computers nowadays don't look anything like that anymore, right? You have like different devices. You have like your portable tablets, your phones, laptops, desktops, different screens, different resolutions. They're all colorful. A lot of them don't have keyboards attached to them. So the technology changed big time. Now, what was the biggest technology change in the last couple of decades? This is to the audience. Anyone can guess what was the biggest change in the last couple of decades?
Mobile.
Mobile, that's a good guess. Chip, okay. Well, the answer I was looking for is actually internet and social apps, right? That's probably one biggest change. Like Brad was just mentioning, you know, Facebook is basically a social app, right? And how many users, how many millions of users we have nowadays? I mean, a lot. All this was not available 10 years ago. I mean, a couple decades, nobody even heard of it. So how did the new technology, has the new technology changed the requirements for the data? Yes, you bet it is. So let's take a look at the new requirements for the data now that we have the new technology. So now we need to store a large amount of heterogeneous data across scalable, replicated web environments. Right? Can SQL do this? Yes, you bet it can. But it might not be the best and most effective tool to do so. Right? So let me show you some examples where SQL might not be efficient in doing so. So let's take a look at these architectural diagrams. And, you know, for technical people, you've seen a whole bunch of them. I don't want you to pay attention to the presentation later. It can be Silverlight, can be WPF, can be anything. Don't want you to look at the WCF service. It's beyond the scope of this discussion, but what I want you to look at is this data service. And we have an Hibernate right in the middle of it. And Hibernate is just a framework of choice. I'm sure technical people, you work with a lot of them. There's an Hibernate, there's Active Record, there's Microsoft, and many others. So basically, what an Hibernate does, it's an object relational mapper framework, and it maps your business objects to your two-dimensional tables. Remember, relational databases are two-dimensional. So whatever your business objects are, you have to map them back to these two-dimensional tables. And sometimes it's good when your data is truly two-dimensional, it's truly relational, you can easily map them. But sometimes when your objects are dynamic or too complex, you might have some issues mapping into your relational databases. And when that happens, you end up with a lot of boxing overhead. This is for non-technical people, right? So basically, your ORM framework will take your data and will try to box it in the two-dimensional tables. And sometimes you'll end up, with too many tables. I mean, too many boxes. Sometimes your box can be too big for your table. You'll have a lot of, optional fields that are being used. Sometimes your box can be too small for your objects, right? So you will run out of, your schema will have to be changed. So you end up with a big, huge boxing overhead, right? Which can be a problem. Can be performance problems. Can be a lot of other problems. So let's see how NoSQL database can actually help us to solve this problem. Let's take a look at the MongoDB, right? Well, MongoDB is a schema-free JSON document storage. So the key word here is JSON, right? Well, JSON format is actually known for being really good and easy to serialize your objects to and deserializing your objects from, right? So instead of boxing your data in the two-dimensional tables, what you can do, you can take your business objects now, you can serialize them to JSON, store them in the JSON format database, in your Mongo database, and then when you need them, you can just deserialize them back into your objects. So pretty simple. So if you look back at the diagram I showed you right before, right here, we don't need the Hibernate or any other relational mapping framework anymore. How cool is that? Now let's take a look at another NoSQL database, Couchdb. Let's see how it can help us, right? Also, Couchdb is also schema-free, REST API-based storage. It also uses JSON to store its documents, but on top of JSON, it also allows you to make your HTTP calls to the database and basically use the HTTP requests like post, get, put, delete to control and manage the data inside the database. So let's take a look back at the diagram and see how it will change. We can see that now we don't need the ORM and we don't need even the WCF service because your presentation layer can call directly your database over HTTP and say, hey, can you fetch me the resources? And the database will fetch the resources. So that simplifies that. Flattens out your architectural diagram quite a bit, which I think is pretty cool. It makes it a lot more maintainable. So another database, NoSQL database that's available out there, it's actually one of the most mature players in the market, is Cassandra. And it's actually built up for supporting clustering, high performance, high availability needs. So if you do a lot of heavy lifting with the data, this is definitely the database to go with. I mean, Cassandra can support hundreds of terabytes of data across hundreds of servers. That's why it's so popular with the social apps like Facebook, Google, Amazon, Yahoo, Twitter, and others. I mean, it's beyond the scope, obviously. I cannot go into descriptions of Cassandra details, but if you need to do heavy lifting with the data, this is what you want to do. You want to use Cassandra. So let's take a look at some of the recommendations when to use and when not to use NoSQL. So if you have heavy data lifting requirements, like you need highly scalable replicated databases, I mean, you want to use NoSQL. If you have performance issues for mapping, right, from all this boxing, you want to use the NoSQL database. If your data is too complex to model in a relational database, you want to use NoSQL database. When not to use NoSQL? When your data is truly relational, like in the case of a data warehouse, you do not want to use NoSQL because it will be an overhead. It will be too complex. So just in conclusion, real quick, because I'm running out of time, just want to touch on the future. What's the future is going to be? Who's going to win, the relational versus non-relational databases, right? Well, the answer is there's going to be no winners. They will coexist. So a lot of your databases will be hosted on the cloud. So your Couchdb will be in the cloud, MongoDB, Cassandra will be in the cloud, and relational database, I mean, they're already on the cloud. And I'm in a state of shock to see you, by the way. And what will happen as an application developer, depending on the need of your application, you will be able to choose which database you want. And do not be limited to just one database, like many people these days are just sticking to one type of database. Well, in the future, you can actually use as many databases as you need. They'll be on the cloud, so you don't need to service them. You just use them. So if you have need for more than one database within the same application, go for it. So as the conclusion, I want to say, do not say no to NoSQL database. Try it and see if it works for you. Maybe you have a business need that you really like the NoSQL database for. Well, then, thank you. Any questions?
I like the Couchdb.
Yes, it's very comfortable. Very comfortable. All right, so thank you, guys.